Hi there, my name is Jim Lister or James, but I prefer Jim, and welcome to my presentation for the Term 1 Assignment 2 portfolio website. A little bit about me: I'm a graphic designer and signwriter looking for a career change into software or web development, and yeah, that's why I'm here. I've really enjoyed putting this website together and I've learned a lot about front-end development in the process, so yeah, okay, here we go. Okay, the project overview. Basically, as you know, the brief was a portfolio website which presents me as a dev and IT professional. The purpose is to provide an online portfolio that provides information about me, my skills, interests, professional knowledge, and showcases my dev projects. I spent about 2 weeks on the project as a whole, including all other bits and bobs such as the UX elements and this presentation. The purpose. The portfolio is ultimately going to be my go-to website for showcasing my development projects to prospective employers. It's going to be the place where I can present myself as a developer as opposed to a graphic designer, as my goal is to sidestep into IT, web and software development. The goal. The main goal is to create and deploy a portfolio website with fully functioning navigation that is also totally responsive across any device. My hopes are that this website will be an invaluable tool for grabbing the attention of prospective employers in full-stack web and software development fields. So, I recently did an online UX course through Google, and that's where I've got some of these slides and concepts from. So my approach to this presentation is that from the perspective of someone working as a front-end dev, as only part of an overall project. So my role in the project is front-end developer, and my responsibilities include designing the sitemap, designing the wireframes, creating and designing visual mockups, and developing the front end. Starting the design. Okay, so just briefly about this section, which typically refers to requirement 6 on the outline. I've kind of mixed up the orders of these requirements to better communicate my process. Essentially, I wanted to talk about these concepts initially because they're all part of the ideating stages of creating a website. Sitemap, digital wireframes, design mockups or prototypes, and finally starting on the front-end development. Okay, so my original sitemap. The first steps in this process was to ideate a simple sitemap. I decided to go for a more traditional portfolio website as opposed to a blog site, as I plan to utilize it to showcase my development projects in the future. I would just like to mention that this did evolve as the project did, and I decided to utilize the About page as the home page, and for now just having the gallery section as a placeholder to eventually be included later down the track. Digital wireframes. Opting for a mobile-first approach, my original wireframes consisted of a 5-page website, and as per the sitemap, linked a homepage to a project page, a blog page, a portfolio gallery, and a contact page. The overall layout of the website did evolve, most notably utilizing my About page as the homepage and shifting the blog page to its own area instead of showcasing it on the landing page. As the plan and focus was to create a responsive website utilizing Flexbox, naturally my digital wireframing included a desktop laptop view. I found creating these wireframes very helpful as it gave me somewhat of an idea of how I could lay out the content on my pages. It was especially advantageous when figuring out how my content could respond to the varying viewport widths of different devices and helped me to make early decisions in regards to which content to scrap and which content to keep. Design mockups. Okay, so I created my original design mockups using Illustrator and Figma. As you can see, the original design concept was that of like an old 8-bit cartoony video game interface. I was planning on using retro-style buttons and pixelated illustrations throughout. The color theme was chosen in an attempt to give off a more professional vibe, even though I prefer a more retro neon palette. Ultimately, however, I opted for a more modern and professional layout after getting some feedback from others. I was happy to lose the retro-style buttons, but I wasn't cracking on the pixelated 8-bit cartoony graphics. I kept the overall theme from my original designs, and the final website turned out pretty close to these final design mock-ups. In fact, I was able to use some of these illustrative components in my final website. Okay, so next I'm going to mention the overview, which refers to requirement 5. I've chosen to address this after R6 because it essentially refers to the completed website, whereas R6 mostly refers to the creative process. So this section will include my finalized detailed sitemap, the overall navigation of the website, and the overall structure of the pages within. A finalized sitemap. Okay, so as you can see here, this is a more detailed version of my original sitemap. You've got the links within the header taking you to the project, gallery, blog, and contact pages. the link to my resume PDF on the homepage, the links to my professional and social media accounts within the footer, and I've actually got some links to some external blogs within the blog section of my website. Navigation. The site's internal navigation is broken into two parts depending on the media query. The media query setting for phones sets the top larger nav to display none and instead shows a smaller nav below the header. The other part of the site's navigation is to external social media sites and external blogs. The navigation for the desktop and tablet views utilizes a list menu within the header, which is a more modern, clean visual approach. The navigation to the external sites remains basically the same. The internal navigation, as mentioned before in the mobile view, is fairly self-explanatory. The only thing worth noting is the blog box, where the entire component is a link to an external source. The overall structure. The overall structure of the website consists mainly of three components: the header, the main section of each page, and the footer. The use of Flexbox within these components is the basis for the structure and responsiveness of the website as a whole. The header and footer remain consistent, however in the next slide I'll explain how the rest of the content is structured within the containers. A brief demonstration of how the remaining pages are structured is as follows. The About page divided into three main containers, utilizing Flexbox and FlexWrap to make all elements responsive. Finally, in mobile view, all of the components are set to stack, one on top of the other. The remaining pages are divided into main containers utilizing Flexbox and FlexWrap to make all elements responsive. Also utilizing Overflow, Scroll to allow the user control over the descriptive text in the project section. With the mobile view again set to stack using FlexWrap. Okay, so the next section is all about a list of my components and how I've used styling to engage the audience, which is, in this case, is a prospective employer. I've also included some accessibility considerations which I feel is a big part of engagement, and I'm sure we'll explore these concepts further down the road in the course. Okay, so my list of components. The list of the main components are as follows. Header, which I've displayed in both desktop and mobile view. The footer, which is styled using large recognizable icons, still adhering to my website's overall style and theme. The next components are basically the same general idea, however I've styled them all slightly differently. But there's the initial cards, as seen on the bottom of this slide, resume card, projects, and gallery cards. These components all have their own responsive aspects as they stretch, shrink, and grow within the browser. The blog box, which is a bit more unique than the others, as the concept was to create a component that resembled a speech bubble with some stylized quotation marks within the headings. The content included some sample text from the blog, nested in with an image that the text wraps around. The whole component links to an external blog source. Finally, the form, which is styled to resemble the rest of the cards, however the back end of the form is not functional at this stage. Engagement. Okay, so I've broken down the site's engagement into three main points. The overall design theme and styling are what is most engaging about this website. The design is very me and should communicate that to an employer straight off the bat. The responsive design is another part of the website that will engage a prospective employer and also demonstrate my ability to develop the front end of a website. The seamless and unbroken navigation is the final piece of the engagement puzzle. The navigation is simple and accessible and should show that I can program the basic navigation of a website. Accessibility considerations. Provided access to users who are vision impaired through adding alt text to images for screen readers, use bold colors and icons to help make navigation easier, use large headings and text to make reading everything easier, use semantic naming conventions within the code, use comments within the code for more accessibility for other developers. Okay, so the next section I'd just like to talk about next steps with this portfolio project, as my intentions are to add to it as I develop my skills in full stack web development. Basically, I'd like to include any future skills I might be learning, as well as some extra front-end stuff as we go along. We'll discuss my takeaways, including impact and what I learned, as well as my intended next steps. Takeaways. Impact. The website currently showcases my ability to design and develop a website on the front end. At this stage, it will mostly demonstrate to a potential employer that I have a graphic design background, can create illustrations, and was able to apply these skills into a front-end development project. The website's strengths lie in its functional navigation and overall responsive design. What I learned. While developing the portfolio website, I learned a lot about HTML, CSS, and Sass. I found out that Sass is a great way to compile and organize code, and there'll be no looking back now. A couple of the other standout things I learned would be Flexbox, which is the ultimate in making our website responsive, as well as media queries. I really gained an understanding of CSS specificities, semantic naming conventions, and utilizing alt text for accessibility purposes. I also learned a lot about HTML attributes, CSS selectors, properties, and values, and how to apply them. Next steps. Take feedback from educators and peers and compile a list of issues and user pain points which need to be addressed. Include future development plans for the backend. Plan to add future projects to the project section, learn the back-end and development side throughout the course, begin to make a plan of how to apply and include these tech stacks. This will include making the forms functional and any other programming languages I can possibly include. Apply the acquired knowledge of back-end development to the website in order to engage the prospective employers and hopefully impress them that much more. Being able to showcase the full tech stacks in the portfolio is the ultimate end goal. Alright, and thank you for listening to my presentation. I appreciate you taking the time to go through my website, and I look forward to receiving your feedback. Thanks very much.